Welcome to Warhammer General Tactics. I am the Twin Coot, and in this video we take a look at the Malign Sorcery realm-specific artifacts.
General Tactics.
Malign Sorcery is an Age of Sigmar supplement that added a surprising amount of new rules to the game. To be honest, I was fairly worried about the addition of endless spells, as well as both realm artifacts and spells. After seeing it all and the aftermath of the Age of Sigmar scene, I think the most of the new rules were actually very helpful to the game. Armies that previously didn't have interesting magic items can now choose from quite a few, and armies that lack synergies and mortal wound output could now take endless spells. While I still don't really like realm spells, the rest of it is all pretty good additions. In this General Tactics, I figured I'd save you all some trouble of looking through 84 sets of special rules and just tell you the ones worth knowing. Even after knowing them all, you'll get blindsided by some weird combination of some specific unit, but it's good to have a general idea of what to expect. There are 12 items from 7 of the mortal realms. GW was nice enough to break their lists up into weapons and relics, with relics being more general buffs, whereas the weapons are all about increasing offensive potential. I'll take it a step further and separate the artifacts with support or area of effects from the personal ones from the debuffing ones. Without further ado, let's get started with the weapons. Sometimes you'll just want a basic stat increase to your weapon. If you're going for increase to hit, take Gur Strike. If you're going to increase to wound, take Gur Strike. The magic weapon for Garan is good for just about any melee character. The only models that won't really make use of it are the ones that already hit and or wound on 2s, which are few and far between. While it seems AOS is moving towards changing rules that trigger on a 6+ to an unmodified roll of 6, there are still plenty that don't have the limitation. For all these models, like the Seraphon Saurus Sunblood and Savage Big Boss from Bone Splitters, Gur Strike can make a huge difference. The Coven Throne is another great benefactor of Gur Strike. Put it on the ethereal attacks to make 12 attacks that deal mortals on 5s. Another great recipient of the weapon is the Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster, who does mortal wounds within a range on a wound roll of 6. Gur Strike just makes this model absolutely bonkers, because the only downside of the model was its 4+ to hit roll. Paired with the other Khorne effects that grant +1 to hit, and the Bloodthirster would kill just about anything it touches. Gur Strike also has the obvious bonus of making a lot of characters' weapons hit and wound on 2s. If you already do that, and you're just looking for +1 attack, the Blade of Hammerhall Gira from Gairan and Rageblade from Gur can do it. If you want Rend, instead of just adding on to it, just change it to Rend -3 with the Shaman artifact Rune Blade, or Olgu's Dimensional Blade. You can also increase damage by 1 with the Hish magic item called Blade of Symmetry. Daughters of Cain can make a pretty deadly combination with this magic item and their command trait, Mistress of Poisons. The trait increases all the bearer's weapon damage by 1. Give the extra damage to the Blades of Cain, since it has 4 attacks to the Death Sword's 3. Altogether, the 100-point model would have 4 damage 3 attacks and 3 damage D3 +1 attacks. Oh, and she can also pile in an attack twice with one of her prayers. Give the model the Daughters of Cain spell Mind Razor to make all her attacks Rend -2 and most likely another damage. With all these buffs, this model would be an incredibly cheap and effective damage dealer. Good thing she only has 5+ to save and 5 wounds. Flat stat increases aren't the only thing though. There are plenty of weapons with effects that trigger on a 6+. 6+ to wound with Anraher's Claw from Gur would increase damage by 2. Perfect for a Lord Executioner from the Nighthaunt faction. On a 6 to wound, the model already adds 2 to damage, so together the Executioner would be dealing 5 damage on a wound roll of 6. The Blade of Endings from Shyish would also increase damage, but on a 6+ to hit instead. To the same effect, the Jade Wound Thorn from Garan would deal a mortal wound on a 6+ to hit. Again, good for some Nighthaunt characters, specifically the ones with Frightful Touch special ability. Conversely, the Akshi Relic, Magma Forged Blade, deals a mortal wound on a 6+ to wound. Great for the Warherd model, the Doom Bull, who has the same rule naturally. Another interesting weapon is the Sword of Judgment from the Olgu realm. When targeting a hero or a monster on a hit roll of 6+, the target is dealt d6 mortal wounds. That's actually pretty brutal and can really make a character a good hero killer. The Knight of Shrouds, with his command ability spammed on himself, could be dealing d6 mortal wounds on 5s, 4s, 3s, even 2s. Insane. With the 6+ to trigger abilities, look for characters that either already have a similar 6+ to trigger roll, or has a +1 to the corresponding roll. An example of the former being a Nighthaunt character with Frightful Touch to pair with another ability that triggers on a 6 to hit. An example of the latter being Unforged from the Dispossessed faction, who gains a +1 to wound bonus. Paired with an artifact that triggers on 6+ to wound, the Unforged would be triggering on a 5+. Take that a step further with the Warden King's command ability to increase it another +1 to wound. The Unforged would be triggering artifacts like Anrahir's Claw on 4s to wound. So 6 attacks that deal 3 damage on 4s to wound. The final weapon artifacts I want to touch on are ranged weapons. The Crucible of Molting Silver from Shaman and the Luminary Rod from Hish have the same effect. Draw a line 9 inches away and deal d3 mortal wounds to the enemies under the line. They may only be once per game items, but they could potentially deal quite a bit of damage. These abilities pair well with the Lore of Vampires spell and Renthine Orb. This one deals d6 mortal wounds in a 12-inch line. The last realm-specific magic item I want to mention are the Rock Jaws from Gur. This is a shooting attack that hits on a 3+ and deals d3 mortal wounds. Pretty straightforward, and my personal favorite of all the mortal wound dealing weapons in Malign Sorcery. Overall, it should be pretty obvious that Gur Strike takes the cake for best all-comers magic weapon, but situationally, characters can get more out of other items. Now, onto debuffing magic items. These are the ones that leave a negative effect on the opponent's models. This is often a solid strategy for armies with lackluster units, like Legion of Nagash. Bring the opponent down to your level. First up are 2 weapons with similar effects, but I figured I'd mention both. The Blade of the 13 Dominions from Olgu would decrease an enemy's to hit rolls by 1, so long as the weapon wounded the target. And the Entangling Blade from Garan does the same, but only has to score a hit. The downside here being the Entangling Blade can only affect heroes and monsters. In either case, charge your bearer in and trigger the effect to debilitate a model like Archaon or Gordrak. Pair this one with other -1 to hits to make it impossible to hit the bearer. The next item on my list is not that great, but has some specific synergies. The Hyper Snare Seeds from Garan would allow you to roll a die at the end of the opponent's shooting phase. On a 5+, choose an enemy unit within 8 inches, and they cannot charge for this combat phase. Now, a 33% chance to stop one unit within 8 inches from charging is pretty boring on its own. But, paired with the Iron Jaws command trait Brutish Cunning, the orcs could pull off some surprising shenanigans. Brutish Cunning allows you to roll a die at the beginning of the enemy's charge phase, and on a 5-up, the Iron Jaws player can charge and attack with one of their units before the opponent can. Another unreliable 5+, but with the rules combined, you have a 66% chance to disrupt the opponent's charge phase quite a bit. Imagine both of them going off at the same time, then sprinkle in the Iron Jaws battle traits Smashing and Bashing, and you may just get to swing with the majority of your army before the opponent can, and that's in their combat phase. A somewhat similar item called the Beast Claw's Bones from Gur could be combined with another Auric faction, the Bone Splitters. This one is used at the start of the combat phase. Roll a die for each monster in 3 inches, and on a 5-up, the mount cannot attack. If nothing else, this is a thematic synergy with the Bone Splitters, but could be pretty helpful against Alariel's Beetle and various ridden dragons. The next magic artifact is from Olgu and is called the Trickster's Helm. This one forces the opponent to reroll successful casting attempts within 8 inches of the bearer. This one is neat, but pretty situational. The next debuffing magic artifact to cover is the Gildan Bane. This magic armor from Shaman cancels the effects of enemy magic items within 3 inches. A pretty small area of effect, but can still be useful with those hero killer models. In my opinion, this or the Entangling Blade are the standouts of the group. Now we can talk about artifacts that grant personal buffs. These are items that increase stats or bestow abilities that don't directly increase their damage dealing potential, like weapons. First two to mention are similar in design, the Verdant Mantle from Garan and the Alchemical Chain from Shaman. The mantle allows for an additional dispelling attempt, while the chain grants another unbinding attempt. Plenty of armies lack reasonable methods of unbinding or dispelling, so it's nice to have these generic options for those armies. If speed is what you're after, the Thermal Cloak of Akshi has got you covered. This great item adds 4 inches to the bearer's movement, as well as grants the Fly special ability. Now, imagine things like Frostlords on Stonehorns flying 16 inches and then running and then charging. A lot of the rest of the personal buffing items are defensive in nature. We have simple items like the God-wrought Helm from Shaman and the Sepulchral Plate from Shyish, as well as another, granting a 6+ save after the save. This one pairs great with similar abilities such as Death's Deathless Minions and Nurgle's Disgustingly Resilient. If your character already has a decent save and needs protection against mortal wounds, take the Ignax Scale from Akshi. This one grants a 4+ save after the save, only usable against mortal wounds. Very similar is the Guardian's Coronet from Hysh. While only once per game, this one also grants an incredible 4+ save after the save. Use this when you throw your important character right in the thick of things and need it to last one more turn. This item will certainly help a hero like the Grimwrath Berserker. Already with a great save after the save, the model would get a very solid turn of attacking without taking much damage. Thematic and possibly very viable tactically. Another item that temporarily protects the bearer is the Ragged Cloak from Shyish. Use this in a single enemy shooting phase. The opponent cannot target the bearer for that phase. This is incredibly powerful with units like zombie dragons who like to fly up in the opponent's face, while the rest of the army may be stuck sitting behind. Use this also as a fallback when you want to plan those double turns. If you fail to get that double turn, use this to protect your exposed character. Another item in the same vein is the Doppelganger Cloak from Olgu. With this one, the bearer cannot be chosen by attacks in combat until they themselves have activated. Get this one charged by something nasty and choose to activate it last, and that will keep that big nasty at the end of the line. The defensive buffs just keep coming, and the next one is Ethereal Armor. This one does exactly what it sounds like, grants the wearer the Ethereal special rule. Ethereal means they ignore both positive and negative modifiers for their armor save. Great when paired with models that grant reroll save rolls like Seraphon's Skink Priests and Fireslayer's Battlesmith. Not technically defensive, but in the same category, Green Glade Flask is a once per game ability that heals D6 wounds to the bearer. This is a really powerful ability and can be paired to great effect with multiple death units like the Vampire Lord, who already has another item to heal D6 wounds once per game. The next two realm-specific artifacts to discuss both have effects that trigger on a 6+ to save. The Jade Diadem heals 1 wound, as to be expected from an item from Garan. The other artifact is the Shard Fist Pelt from Gur, and it deals a mortal wound to the attacker when it triggers. With the nerf to Mystic Shield, +1 to save is much harder to come by, but some armies still find a way. Stormcast Lord Castellan, Daughters of Cain Cauldron of Blood, and even the Balewind Vortex can all still feasibly give a character +1, or sometimes more to save. Pairing the Shard Fist Pelt, a Lord Castellan, and character with a Sigmarite Thunder Shield will make an incredibly deadly combination. Give the model +1 or more to save, and they will be dealing a mortal wound on 5s to save. And then, if they roll a 1, they could re-roll it. If that gets a 5 or more, it deals D3 +1 mortal wounds back. That's disgusting. Not to mention, Stormcast have other ways to get +1 to save, so they can keep stacking this, making a unit that is almost impossible to kill without hitting it with mortal wounds. The last two buffing magic artifacts I will touch on are the Miasmic Blade from Olgu and the Griff-Feather Charm of Gur. In my opinion, they are the best in their class, and the two items are almost identical. They both grant -1 to hit, but the Griff-Feather also increases the bearer's move by 1 inch. Ooh, not a big buff, but does tip the scale in its favor. This works in shooting and combat, and can be devastating when combined with other -1 to hit modifiers. The Vampire Lords on Zombie Dragons in A Legion of Blood know all about that. The command trait Aura of Dark Majesty would decrease incoming hit rolls in combat by an additional 1, making the beast all but unhittable to most units in melee. The last type of magic item we'll cover are the special abilities with an area of effect. This means the character becomes a support unit, with either an area granted within an aura, or an effect bestowed on a nearby unit, or possibly on the whole battlefield. The first one is pretty simple, the Gairan Relic, Wand of Restoration. This one just heals a wound back to a model within 6 inches. This works well with Dragon Ogre Shaggoths and Guardian of Souls who already heal models or wounds back. The next item up is the Crown of Flames from none other than the Realm of Akshi. This increases bravery to units wholly within 9 inches. Decent as a general boost, but armies like Daughters of Cain take it a step further. Mind Razor is a spell within the Army's Allegiance abilities that grants an extra buff on a unit if their bravery is higher than the target's. At times like this, it's great to have a generic option for added bravery. The Spell Mirror of Olgu and Lens of Refraction of Hysh are the next two items we'll discuss. The two have similar effects in that they defend from incoming magic spells. The Spell Mirror has an aura effect with a range of 6 inches. Roll a die when a friendly unit is targeted by a spell. On a roll of 5 up, negate the effects of the spell, and on a 1, the item is broken and cannot be used again. The Lens of Refraction also has a 6-inch range, but this one protects from the first spell directed at friendly models in range. That spell's damage is decreased by D3 mortal wounds. This means if the enemy casts Arcane Bolt and deals 3 mortal wounds at a unit in range of the lens, you get to roll a dice. Decrease those 3 mortal wounds by the result of the D3. So, if you got a 2, decrease the 3 mortal wounds to 1. Pretty powerful and way better than a save after the save for that one spell. The Talisman of the Watcher is the next item on the list and basically provides an extra Mystic Shield. If the bearer is not within 3 inches of an enemy unit, they can give a friendly unit within 9 inches reroll save rolls of 1. Not bad for an army that relies on their save rolls but can only provide Mystic Shield. Or for armies that don't have wizards and still want that Mystic Shield. The last item we're going to talk about in the video is the one I think is the best in the category of area of effect support items. The Aether Quartz Brooch is pretty interesting to some armies. Able to recover a command point when you use one on a roll of 5 up. For armies that rely on CP, this is a great help, and for armies that can stack a ton of CP, this will be even more effective. There are a lot of command traits that give extra CP to an army, and pair with them, the Aether Quartz brooch will just give and give and give. There are so many combinations that work well with this. Even most of the Grand Alliances have some command trait that increases CP. If you bought a second battalion and don't really have another good option for an artifact, just take the Aether Quartz brooch and know that between the extra CP from the battalion and the additional you gain through the brooch, you'll be using command abilities much more than most players. So there you have it, a pretty thorough list of the better Malign Sorcery realm-specific artifacts, and some combinations for them. It's certainly not a comprehensive list though. I just wanted to make a general video any AOS player could listen to and hopefully gain some cool combos. In any case, I have plenty of other Age of Sigmar content on the channel, more specifically warscroll reviews on individual units. Please check them out and subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you thought of the video in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching.